Okay, this video is probably going to be a little bit shorter, but I wanted to talk about a particular topic that is a source of lots and lots of bugs in JavaScript, and that has to do with constructor functions. So here we have a very simple constructor function. We have an object foo that we want to create, capital letter, it's a constructor function, and that should be your visual indicator. Constructor functions do not have to be capitalized, but they almost always are in practice, and it's because you need this visual indicator to tell if this is just a regular function or is this supposed to be used with the new keyword. That's very, very important because you get completely different behavior otherwise. Okay, so let's get rid of that return for now. It's the same as if we had it or not. So by default, if there is no return, the function just returns undefined, right? Which is the same as returning nothing like that. Okay, so very simple. We have two variables and we're just calling them bar and baz, and we're attaching them to this new foo object. And we have two ways of exploring objects or of creating the object. We're going to use the new keyword first, right? And this is the correct way. Notice we're using console.dir as opposed to console.log. Console.dir allows you to explore an object, take the directory listing of an object. And in the browser, dir is very nice because you have a collapsible, actually a collapsible view like you would in a file system. So for each property, if your properties contain other objects, it's really nice. You can open and close them. Really excellent utility, console.dir. So whenever you want to explore an object, use that. It's not as nice in the terminal setting because the terminal does not have the ability to collapse. Right. So here, notice with new, when we print this object with console.dir, it tells you the type of the object or the name of the constructor function that was used to create it. And this is the object. It has a property bar that says yes, and then baz, we did use new. Okay, so this is yes, we used new. Here we're saying no, we did not use new, and we run this function, and then we get what back? Undefined. Okay, so you may think to yourself, so is this function even doing anything? And yes, it is, because we called the function. It's actually running something. So what we can do is we can return this, and maybe you might think this would solve all of our problems because we're adding bar to this and we're adding baz to this, and then we just return this and it should be the same, right? Well, let's run it, and when we run it, we see that no, it's not. So our first object was a new foo object, but we didn't run the second one with new, and so this refers to the global object. Okay, so inside of this context, remember, this function isn't attached to anything, right? This constructor function is in the global scope. So this does not refer to some outer function that it's attached to. It refers to the global scope. And that's what we see here. We see global, right? This is the global object. So in Node, the global object is called global. On the browser, the global object is called window. And they have similar things on them, similar features. Some are different. The browser version has things that only relate to the browser, and the Node version has things that only relate to sort of server-side programming. Okay, so that's very important to know that that's how this works. And I've seen lots and lots and lots of JavaScript bugs in my time that all stem from somebody not using the new keyword. And in other programming languages like Python, for example, when you instantiate a class, you don't need the new keyword, right? So it's somewhat understandable. But this, to me, seems like a bad design, right? Because we don't ever really want a function to be both. We never want a function to be a function that is just supposed to be a regular old function when you call it like this, and then something else entirely when you use it with new. That is a recipe for disaster, and I've actually seen that in code bases, and it's really scary, and it causes all kinds of problems. So you want to separate your usages of functions. They should either be constructor functions entirely, or they should be regular functions that you're not supposed to use the new keyword with. Okay, very, very, very important. Now you can, if you know what you're doing, you can do some crazy stuff and have a function that does both. I really do not recommend it. It's a source of all kinds of really difficult bugs to track down. Okay. So if we want to do this, we want to eliminate the use of new. That might be nice for us, right? Because there's so much, potential danger around this new keyword. All right. So what we might want to do is check to see. There's a special way to check to see if the function is running in the context of the new keyword or not. All right. So I can say if, and then not new.target. So I run this function, and I can put this at the very top too, right? We can do something like this. We'll put this at the very top and say, if I happen to be running this function and new.target will be true if it's been run with the new keyword, it will be false otherwise. So if it's false, we invert that Boolean not, so it becomes true, and then we just return the new foo with whatever arguments we were supplied. So let's go ahead and, so this is just sort of a generic way of doing it. So we would want to get args here. Right, so we use the spread operator inside of a function definition that basically collects all the arguments into an array called args. And then if we use the spread operator when we are calling a function, that args array, and it can be any array, it spreads those array elements out as individual arguments. Okay, so this is a nice little trick if you wanted to never use the new keyword, right? Now this is something there's probably a lot of contention around. I personally really like this. Depending on who you're working with, you all have to agree on, how your code base should work, and you want to keep it consistent, right? Some people might not like this at all. It just depends. But it's a really cool little way to avoid ever having the accidental new foo issue. Another thing with this though is it's I haven't found a way to do this with classes. So with classes, you actually do have to use the new keyword, and that's a little bit frustrating. There might be a way to do it. I haven't spent much time on it. Okay. So here, if we get this function called and no keyword is used, then we're going to go ahead and call new. And let's say this dot name is, we'll do something like this. Here, let me just copy this over. We'll grab the first argument. Instead of having 2, we'll just have 1. And so this is yes, and then this one is no. So no is being called with no no new keyword, and then yes is being called with the new keyword. All right. So the only difference is in this case, this will be true, and then we'll just call it with the new keyword, and then this will be false, and then we'll just do a normal object construction. But we do want to remove that, return this, because that's not what we want either. Okay, so this is basically it. Really simple way to get rid of having to use the new keyword, and it's kind of cool. You do have to understand that is a thing that you can do though. So, all right, so let's take a look at this and run no new, and instead of getting something like this or undefined, we do in fact in both cases get an object. This is the one with no new, and this is the one where we did use new. All right, and paste in some of this text here. So it's a common mistake to call a constructor function without using new. And again, that is very common. I've seen that a lot of times, and it causes very strange behavior sometimes. So this just executes the function rather than creating a new object, and this will not refer to a new object, but the object on which this function was attached. So again, this is going to refer to the this in the outer context of the function, right? Not a new object. Okay. So to protect against this, we can use this one potential option. All right. So kind of a cool trick, and more than knowing about this, more important is just knowing how common this type of bug can be by using or by forgetting to use the new keyword when you intend to create a new object. So it's a very, very common problem. So be careful of it. All right, that's it for this video. Very short.